Christmas! And what could be better than gliding through this winter wonderland? Second thoughts, stop all this. I suppose we all dream of the romantic notion of a white Christmas, but I can tell you, sitting in minus 20 degrees high up in the north of Lapland, I can think of some warm places to be. So I'm going to interrupt my trip over the next couple of weeks to show you how I'm going to spend an ideal, perfectly happy Christmas and New Year. Over the next 2 programmes, I'll be concentrating on creating a superb stress-free dinner for Christmas Day. I'll be cooking a 5-course feast for New Year, creating the perfect buffet for an informal party, and I might even sample a drink or two. Strictly in the name of research, of course. But first things first. Right, this is my own personal kitchen in my home, and imagine that it's Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas Day. So that we can really enjoy Christmas Day, I believe you should do as much cooking on the day before as is possible. And one of the most essential things is to make a really, really good gravy, whether it's going to be for your turkey or your goose or your chicken, or maybe you might even want to make some and save some to go with some game birds at New Year's Eve. So come and have a look at what I've done already. Now, in the pot here with some goose fat, I've got the giblets from my turkey and from the goose that I'm going to be cooking. Next, I'm going to add a sprig of bay leaves, a head of celery, a bit of onion, some garlic and some carrots to flavour the gravy. Then we're going to add a good bottle of wine. Then, one of the great little gadgets I've got in my own home here is this thing. It's a shower. Saves me having to take heavy saucepans all the way over to the sink. Excellent. Give that a quick stir. Now, we'll let that simmer away now, very gently, very slowly, for a couple of hours. And later on, we'll thicken it with a little bit of flour and butter mixed up together, and then we'll strain it through so we don't have any of these lumps in it, and it's a fabulously rich gravy. Now, the other nice thing to go with things like turkeys and stuff is some bread sauce. Now, to get a really good flavour for the bread sauce, you need a saucepan with some celery leaves, onion, peppercorns and bay leaves and carrot. Then just pour the milk over it and let that simmer very, very gently for 20 minutes or so the milk takes on a really savoury flavour. And that's it so far. Right, then the next most important thing is to stuff the turkey. Now, I think it's a good idea to bone a turkey out. If you can't do it yourself, ask the butcher to do it for you. It really makes it much easier on the day to carve the thing. It makes the stuffing taste better as well. On the subject of stuffing, I have unashamedly bought a packet of sage and onion stuffing from the supermarket. I bought some sausage meat. I've chopped up some fresh onions, some fresh sage, some fresh parsley, and some boiled chestnuts, which you can get in tins in brine, but they are unsweetened, by the way. Also, I've got some egg and cream beaten up together, some brandy, and some water. And it's terribly simple. Really simple. Whack that in there like that. Chuck in a bit of warm water, just to be able to let that soak up. You see, this is the fake stuff, but, you know, you mustn't be a slave at Christmas time, and I think you should use all the bits of convenience food that you can and then tweak them up to make them look really homemade. Right, then into there we'll put our sausage meat. This is lovely. This is real mud pie stuff. Mix that well in together. Then we'll add the onions, the sage and the parsley. Mix all that in. Then the really luxurious bit about this is the chestnuts. Repeat, they are unsweetened. They're just boiled chestnuts, or you can buy them in tins in brine. Mix that in. Leave them fairly lumpy because they've got a lovely flavour. And then, for extravagance and richness, and I always like things like that, and it is Christmas after all, and bear in mind the people you're going to have to share your meal with tomorrow, make this a nice alcoholic stuffing. Get that. Hands into that. And then a couple of whole eggs, half a pint of cream, just whisked up. Now leave that in the refrigerator now for about half an hour, because those dried breadcrumbs from the packet will absorb all of the unnecessary extra liquid and it'll be easier to stuff the bird. So there we are. I'm off to wash my hands. This is the really messy bit. It's quite difficult to do, but it is well worth it. Anyway, first of all, lots of butter around the outside of the turkey, a little bit inside as well. Quickly do the hands, and we'll sprinkle a bit of salt over the whole thing. And now the stuffing is taken up. I'm going to fill the thing right up with this wonderful sausage meat, chestnut, sage and onion, brandy and cream stuffing. You'll really appreciate this tomorrow because you'll be able to carve right the way through the bird with the stuffing, encountering no bones except, of course, the two thighs, which we've left on. And by wrapping it up in tin foil, it will ensure that the bird doesn't fall to bits during the roasting process. There we are. Then, the tricky bit, I should have had a proper needle and thread to do this, but I forgot. So I'm using these little old skewers, which are perfectly good because they're bend and they're flexible. And also, of course, the tin foil is going to help keep it into the perfect shape that you want. Right, we've now reformed the turkey with this excellent stuffing. More butter around it. Then put these layers around it like that. Like that. Tip it back up to its proper way up. And then place it on my trusty baking tray. I've already put some water in the bottom. Very good idea because the steam helps to cook the turkey. There we are. That can now go in the fridge until tomorrow morning, then pop it in the oven, and for the last half an hour, take the tin foil away so the turkey will brown really nicely, and you can occasionally baste it with the juices that have mixed into the water in the bottom of the baking tray. So there we are. For my Christmas lunch starter, I'm going to have cold poached salmon. But I'm going to cook it today and allow it to refrigerate in the fridge overnight and then assemble the actual dish tomorrow morning, which is effectively Christmas morning. So, the first most important thing to do is to remove the backbone. Squeeze your forefinger and thumb very tightly round the front end of the backbone and then just pull it along all the way down so the bones come out in one strip. It's a little bit tiresome to do, but it's going to be really good news for those that moan about, I don't like fish with bones in and things like that, you know. So you get the bones out quite simply like that and throw that away. In fact, we won't throw it away. It's a very bad thing to do, because what I'll do, I'll put this into the bottom of this fish kettle, which has also got just water, celery leaves, lemon juice, bay leaves, and a little salt. Fold the old fish back over and pop them in there. And then, because the fish was too big to go in my fish kettle, I've cut his head off and wrapped it up in cling foil and his little tail, and we'll pop that on top like that, and we'll reassemble it tomorrow, as you will see. But tomorrow, of course, is later on in this programme. So that goes on there. Right. Now, incidentally, at this moment, I'm also parboiling my potatoes, which I'm going to strain and cool and keep in the fridge overnight, ready to roast tomorrow morning. I'm going to cook my cabbage and Brussels sprouts and everything today, slightly underdone, cling wrap them in serving dishes, and actually microwave it on the day. As an alternative to Christmas pudding, I've decided to poach some soft, out-of-season fruits, but that's the way the world is these days. You can get fruit from all over the world at any time of the year. So I've put some nectarines and some plums and some apricots in some lemon juice, cinnamon and sugar, and just poached them very lightly for about 5 minutes, and then allowed them to cool. Then, because this is a really economical, actually this is like a winter pudding, it's like a roasted summer pudding. I've buttered a load of white sliced bread, which I'm going to pop round this elegant little bowl, which is a Christmas pudding bowl, in fact. And in fact, by definition, this is also a Christmas pudding because it's being eaten at Christmas. So it's Christmas pudding. And you push this really well down so the bread forms a complete seal. Again, this isn't the sort of thing you want to be doing on Christmas morning, because your hands are all covered in, you can't even open your presents when your hands are covered in butter. Never mind hold a glass. Could easily slip out. Right, now press all that down like that. Then we'll fill it with this wonderful fruit. straining off most of the liquid because we're going to save the liquid for sauce on the day, along with our brandy butter. I thought this was a rather cheery kind of a dish. You know, Christmas time seems to be a bit black, doesn't it? Christmas puddings are black, Christmas cakes are black, and if my luck stays with me as usual, my turkey will be black as well. Although that's a terrible thing, I have to say. The number of times I've had Christmas lunch with people who really haven't cooked their turkey. It comes out kind of white and steamed, not very nice. All right, then we cover the whole thing with slices of buttered sliced bread, and then finally cover the whole thing with a little bit more butter and squeeze it right down so the whole pudding is sealed with bread and butter. Now, before I actually bake this, I'm going to put it in the fridge to let all the juices from the fruit soak into the bread, and then tomorrow morning, just before or during the time our guests arrive, I'll pop it into the oven and bake it. So that's how. Now, we've been very sensible. We've taken the stress out of Christmas. We prepared our puddings, we prepared our sauces, we prepared stuffings, we've got the turkey ready. So tomorrow should pass happily. In fact, before I wrap my own presents up, I think I deserve a little slurp of chilled rosé. Happy Christmas. Don't forget, you must hang your stockings up. This one's for my dog Paddlington, this one's for my good lady wife, and this one is for me. Not my fault I've got big feet.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Great, it's Christmas morning, and I have to confess, despite all my preparations, I have got a bit of a hangover this morning because we were up very late wrapping the presents and stuff. But final movements now. The goose must go into the oven. The turkey's already in the oven. So I'm going to stuff the goose, not for eating, but just for flavouring, with some celery leaves, some pieces of onion, and some pieces of lemon, and also a nice sprig of sage. There. Next thing, and very simply to do, is to rub some salt over the bird and paint it with some butter, like that. Then, because the goose is a very fatty bird, we want to prick it so the fat can escape quite easily, because later on we'll be using the fat to roast the potatoes. Then simply put some, I also like to roast my goose with a bit of water underneath it, because it helps to steam it, and also when the fat runs into that, it helps to make the basis of a lovely gravy. And the main thing is, on this day of Christmas morning, is not to panic. And I'm not panicking, not very much. Got 8 people coming to lunch. Right, that's going in the oven. That'll take about 3 hours to roast very gently, and at the last 20 minutes I'll take the tin foil off and let the skin brown nicely. Good. Now the next thing is my Christmas Day special starter. You'll remember that I poached this salmon, and by the way, the perfect way to cook a salmon is to simply bring it to the boil. The second it's boiled, switch off the heat and leave the salmon in there, let it cool down overnight. So I wrapped up its little tail in cling film because the salmon itself wouldn't fit in my thing, because I need it for the decoration. And his little head, that looks very much like my director. Then we lift the salmon out. For the moment, this is all a little bit messy, but we'll make it unmessy in a moment or two. That's the old fish bones I used for flavouring. Get rid of those bits. This is why you don't need to be panicking. Everything's got to be done at a slow, gentle pace. Now, the first thing now is to remove the skin. Now, this is quite messy, but when I've finished it will look wonderful. And also, of course, when they come having had too much sherry before lunch, the fish bones and the skin won't get stuck in their teeth because it's all removed. Right, head back on. Then, I've made some fresh mayonnaise with beautiful free-range egg yolks from my own garden and first-class olive oil. But if you can't be bothered to do that, you should have bought some from the supermarket. Then we start to reconstruct the old fish with mayonnaise. In here, very thin slices of cucumber, which I've had sitting in salt to get the liquid out of them. And then we put the scales on the fish back, but made from cucumbers. And as you can see, this is going to take quite a few minutes for that to happen. Needless to say, since Christmas is meant to be a family affair, there's no reason why the kids or the husband or whatever couldn't be finishing off the salmon like this with laying the bits of cucumber on, leaving you free to have a well-deserved slurp of something. Right, that's pretty much ready. I'll give that a final wipe before the guests come. But in the meantime, I just pop it in the fridge to keep it cool and fresh until lunch. To get the perfectly roasted potato is difficult at the best of times. At Christmas time, when the oven is absolutely packed with turkeys and things like that, it's almost impossible. So, here is a very cunning Floyd tip, which really, truly works. I've parboiled some potatoes, so you just rough them up a little bit with a fork, so they've got a bit of floury edges to them, like so. And then, into a heavy-bottomed pan, you put some lovely goose fat, or lard, or dripping, chuck your potatoes in, stir them all around so they're nicely covered with the oil, or the lard, or the dripping, and then, quite simply, we put the lid on and leave them there for about an hour, but every 10 minutes or so, just give them a stir round in the fat, and they'll produce the most wonderfully roasted, golden, floury, delicious potatoes, a secret which we won't tell our guests about. If, like me, you've spent all morning cooking and probably having a bit of a late one last night, then this is the time for the perfect pick-me-up. It's terribly simple. You need a few ice cubes in your cocktail shaker, a modest dash of vodka, not too much, not that much, some excellent chilled beef consommé. Get it from the supermarket and put it in the fridge overnight. Shake in a drop of lemon juice, a dash of Worcestershire sauce and a bit of Tabasco. Now, this might strike you as strange, but I can assure you, if you're feeling frail, this is going to put you right back on top of the world. Give that a good shake. Pour that into your glass. Have a quick slug of that before we start the proceedings. Absolutely wonderful. Right. Now, Christmas punch, a very modest one. It's very simple. Soft, light brown sugar into the pot. Dark brown sugar into the pot. A load of cinnamon, powdered cinnamon. And some ground mace, ground nutmeg. Then mix that with some orange and grapefruit juice. And then just pour in a modest quantity of red wine. I put 5 bottles into this, should be perfectly okay. Just to make sure they all get in the party spirit, I suggest just a dash of brandy. And for added flavour, some fresh citrus fruits. And then we can just put that by the fire to warm slowly through. Now then, my Arctic daiquiri is a perfect cocktail for Christmas. Buy yourself a load of frozen fruit and a reasonable domestic blender. Put that in there. Add some sugar syrup. Either buy it or make it yourself, which is just water and sugar, a little bit of cinnamon to heat through it. Then add a dash of vodka, and a couple of ice cubes. My special Arctic daiquiri, frozen berries, vodka and syrup, ice, blended to perfection. To pull you round after a heavy one, a bull shot, ice consomme, vodka, Worcester sauce and Tabasco and lemon juice. And then the Christmas punch, generous quantities of wine, brandy, cinnamon, mace and nutmeg, brown sugar and citrus fruit, warmed gently by the fire. My guests will be arriving shortly, and I've got things to do. Right, I've changed and showered, and I'm almost ready. Just an hour to go, a few lemons on there. Salmon's absolutely perfect. The gravy, brilliant. Potatoes are doing perfectly. Turkey's in the oven. And that's ready. I want this out to rest for a good 20 minutes. It won't get cold. It makes it easier to carve when you've left it standing for a while. And of course the gravy will be very, very hot and the plates will be very, very hot. Cranberry sauce I've got, roast goose I've got, apple sauce. Bread sauce, I just microwave that up and put it in a nice dish. Add butter and pepper to the cabbage, butter and pepper to the sprouts, microwave them. Mint butter to go onto the carrots, microwave them. Brandy butter ready to serve up with the Christmas pudding, and my fruit charlotte I'll pop into the oven at the last minute just to warm it through. So that's about it, I think. So, with a bit of forward planning, some preparation the day before, and a bit of work on the big day itself, you can create delicious Christmas fare and you'll still have time to spend with your family and friends. And now it's time for my Christmas feast. So, here we are. Merry Christmas. And after all that preparation, it's gone in a flash. But there's something very satisfying and rewarding about serving up a meal and seeing it enjoyed by your guests. Cheers, everybody. Absolutely Merry Christmas. You're all terribly welcome. Thank you. Cheers, everybody. Television directors don't live in the real world, you know. We were going to do a Christmas programme, so he said, let's go up to Lapland. It'll be fun up there, lots of snow and reindeers and things. Well, there are, and it is. But my God, it's cold. But at least the chilly weather sharpens the appetite. And I'll be creating some delicious party fare and a magnificent 5-course festive feast to celebrate the new year in style. I've got to admit that this country sums up everything you imagine about Christmas. But my reason for coming here is to throw a festive buffet party for some chums from Lapland. After all, they do live in the same place as Santa, so if anyone should know how to enjoy this time of year, they should. Well, I've been working since, honestly, about 7:30 this morning to get my party food ready for today, and the first thing I'm making is a sort of a salmon tartare. Now, this is raw salmon, just chopped up with a knife, not in a blender, and marinated in lemon juice. Into that, I'm going to add some chopped red onion, some chopped capers, in vinegar, of course, then some horseradish grated and mixed with cream, a little bit of mayonnaise, then some fresh cream. So we mix that up. Now this, in the kind of Lapland and general Scandinavian tradition, are going to be served on open sandwiches with lettuce and garnish them with lingonberries. So, Sean, if you'd like to carry on with those, my dear, thanks very much. Now, my next dish are some miniature lamb koftas, minced beef or lamb. Add in again to that some finely chopped onion, some garlic. This is a slightly Middle Eastern dish. Some powdered cumin, some coriander, ground coriander, some fresh coriander, and a couple of beaten eggs. So we then mix it well together and form them into little tiny patties. about the size of that, which we then grill later on and serve with a lovely cucumber and yoghurt relish. Right, there as you are, Sean. You can like to just make those into little tiny ones like that. Now, I have been reading in the papers recently, there's been a lot of criticism of television cooks who don't wash their hands. But you do have to remember that I've wiped mine off, so they're very, very clean and nice. Now, another good little party dish are satays, little tiny kebabs. I've used pork and beef alternately. You could use chicken and prawns. You could use anything you like. And I've had them marinating in olive oil and lemon juice. And now I'm going to make the final flavouring of them, which is brown sugar, some cumin, and again some coriander, and some garlic. Now what we're going to do is take some coconut milk and make ourselves a little paste of all of this. And we'll pour that all over the whole lot, all over our little satays or our little mini kebabs, and let that marinate away in the fridge for an hour or two. As always, it's terribly important to realise that preparation is everything here. Obviously, you're not going to bung these straight under the grill. You get all the cold things done first of all, neatly organised, and then just as you see the whites of their eyes as they come towards you, coming through the front door, that's when you start to actually do the cooking. So, Sean, if you can stick that in the fridge for the next hour or so, that'll be terribly good. Right, earlier, as they say in the best television programmes, I cooked some fresh asparagus and rolled it in bacon, and they too will be grilled as the guests arrive. If they took all the food in the world away and just left one thing, for me it would be cheese. I adore cheese on toast. So I'm going to do some little pieces of toasted cheese for my friends when they come. It's terribly, terribly simple. Loaves of bread sliced up in good pieces, lots of olive oil, and then spread with a mixture of Roquefort cheese mashed up with olive oil. We'll just make a couple of these so you can see, then Sean can do all the rest. We're going to do 2 different kinds. One with ham, Parma ham in this instance, and some Emmental, some tomato, and some Gruyere cheese, and an anchovy. And the other kind we'll do with sun-dried tomatoes as opposed to fresh tomatoes. We'll put some Emmental on top of there. We'll put some more Parma ham on top. This time, on top of the Parmesan, we'll add an egg, Parmesan cheese, and a little piece of black olive. And then you just whack that lot under the grill, let them really melt and go golden and drizzly, and they'll be absolutely delicious. So, Sean, just keep those to one side, and we'll cook those a little bit later. Ah, so stressful, these parties, you know, so stressful. But there are rewards. There's happy, smiling faces, and also there's a bottle or two for you to drink, or me in this case. A small selection of my finger food. Little kuftas, lamb or beef, grilled with cumin and spices, and fresh asparagus wrapped and grilled in bacon. Little open sandwiches of salmon tartare with lingonberries, miniature satays with cumin and brown sugar and spices, and my favourite of all, an effectively little crostini of tomatoes, anchovies, Parma ham and cheese. Goes down well at any time. Well, everything is ready. Now all I need is the guests. Skiing may be a great way to arrive, but I wonder if they'll look as elegant when they leave. But you know, all this winter wonderland stuff is all very nice, but there's only one place where I really want to be at this time of year. This is my kitchen. This is my home. This is where I live and where I cook and where I eat. Christmas time, as you know, New Year's Eve time, is a very stressful time of the year. And even more so for me, because my birthday falls between Christmas Day and New Year's Eve, as does my daughter's, Poppy. And it's a time of the year when people you haven't invited drop round to your house. And what do you give them to eat? Well, I thought we'd prepare a couple of long-lived snacks that can live in the fridge for 2 or 3 or 4 days and feed people really nicely, really festively during this time. So I've decided to make a classic, proper British pork pie, a real one. Look, in here, I've chopped up loads of bits of pork, belly of pork and leg of pork and stuff like that, put it into some water with a couple of pig's trotters, which will make it jellify when it gets cold, with onions, parsley, bay leaves, sage and carrots for flavouring. Then I've made some hot water crust pastry. Now this is done by melting lard in water and mixing it with the flour while it's still hot. Now this, because it's going to be a traditionally hand-raised pork pie, we won't use rolling pins, and we're going to have a nice thick crust. We're going to flatten that out and lay it in the bottom of our baking tray there. And we'll keep pressing it right the way down and start to build it up around the sides as well. This is what's good fun about cooking, I think, is cooking is not a science, it's not an art, it's a cross between playing with plasticine and doing painting. And I really enjoy it. So we get some more of this out, and once it's been baked in the oven, it can keep in the fridge, easily for a week. Right, so we have that, we're happy about that. Now, we're going to fill it. Now, there's a school of thought that says you might like to mince this, but I don't. I like the big, chunky pieces of meat in it. Right, then we now put a lid on the top of this. Same thing. Press it out by hand. Now, you can be as smart as you like about making this look really pretty. But since I'm not a really smart guy and I don't care too much about prettiness, I'm much more concerned about the flavour. Then I'm going to brush that with beaten egg and milk so the pie crust will glaze nicely. I'm going to make a little hole in the middle because later on, when it's baked, I'll be filling up the pie with this lovely rich pork jelly. So there it is. That's our genuine hand-raised pork pie, and it's going in the oven for probably about an hour. There's absolutely nothing mysterious about cooking. There's no magic, there's no art, there's no science. It's all to do with planning and preparation. I'm making this vegetable terrine, and earlier I fried, in olive oil, some thin slices of aubergine, some red and green peppers, some chopped onion, some courgettes, and some tomatoes. So we'll put some aubergines in the bottom here. I've burnt them a little tiny bit. I've got them slightly caramelized for extra flavour. And then some red and green peppers. And at this stage, we'll put in a layer of onion. That goes in there. Then the courgettes, again a little bit caramelized and in very thin slices, because when this eventually goes into the fridge to chill and to set, we need to be able to cut it through like a cake. And some tomato, which I've de-seeded and skinned, by the way. Then a layer of fresh herbs. And I think we'll add a little bit more courgette just to fill the pot up. And then the final thing is this saucepanful of fresh tomato sauce. Now, it's not actually fresh. I bought it from the supermarket in a carton, but it's pure. It's not got any artificial flavourings. It's just straightforward tomato sauce. But into that, I've tipped a couple of tablespoonfuls of aspic, so that when it gets cool in the fridge, this will turn into a wonderful tomato jelly. Yeah. And then we'll pop the lid on, and I'll whack it into the fridge for 2 or 3 hours until it's set, like a jelly. So, there's my pork pie. I've allowed it to cool down for about 3 hours. I've also allowed the stock, which I cooked the meat in, to cool down. It's almost turned to jelly. So at this stage, I fill the pie with what is really the delight of this great, great British dish, the lovely jelly. There we are. That'll soak its way down, and I'll keep it in the fridge for another couple of hours. And then when we cut it open, we can see a wonderful classical pork pie with pickled walnuts, pickled onions, a little salad, and, as a bit of a sting in the tail, a succulent, chilled vegetable terrine. Join me after the break for the perfect New Year's Eve feast. It's New Year's Eve in the morning, all day to prepare a super feast for our chums and our friends, as opposed to the relatives we had to have on Christmas Day. So we can let our hair down on this one. We can do a bit of gastronomic cookery. But we don't need to make it a stressful time. So start early in the morning, bake a few things, get a few things out of the way, go to the pub, have a few drinks, and then come back later on in the afternoon and cook the main thing throughout the day, which is a nice way to do it. So what I've decided to do, I've baked some little pastry cases, blind as we call it. That's just rolling out the frozen pastry I bought from the supermarket, because they're not that important, these friends of mine. I'm not going to waste my time making pastry. Bake them, stuff them with some dried beans, bake them blind, okay? Then get a selection of cooked shellfish, prawns, crab meat, octopus, whatever you fancy, whatever you like. Then mix, say, 4 egg whites and 4 egg yolks with about half a pint of cream and whisk it up. Simple as that. Then fill each tart case with the selection of the fish that you like. I've got some prawns, and I've got some cooked octopus, and I've got some shrimps, and I've got some crab meat. Anything you like at all, anything that's easy to get. Fill up the little tart cases like so. Add a little chopped chive and a little bit of dill. Fish and dill seem to be made for each other. Then pour over the egg yolk, egg white, and cream. Once they're baked, these can be popped into the fridge to serve with a little crispy salad as the hors d'oeuvre for your New Year's Eve dinner party. And a little bit of luxury, a nice prawn on the top. Then, because these pies have already been baked once, we don't want them to burn. We're going to put some little bits of tin foil over them. Probably blow away with the fan that's going on over my head, but never mind. Just like that. And we'll pop them into the oven only for about 15 minutes. This evening has a Scottish flavour to it. And so I'm going to make a super pudding, which you can do very quickly, very easily, put in the fridge, ready for when your guests arrive. And I like it a lot because it involves something very dear to my heart, ground up oatmeal cakes. The sort of things we used to have in the army. We used to make porridge with them. It was horrible. But this recipe, using ground up oatmeal cakes, has some special surprises because it uses something which I absolutely love, the old whiskey. And we mix these oatmeals up with a load of whiskey, and we let it soak in. Then we add some superb Highland honey and let that soak in. Now, the lovely thing about New Year's Eve is there's all the lovely expressions they have, don't they? You know, things like, it's time for a change, out with the old, they say. And in with the new. Lovely. Earlier, I bought from the supermarket some red currants, some blackberries, some raspberries, and some blueberries. And I simmered them in a mixture of lemon juice, water, cinnamon, and sugar. I'm going to put some of this into the bottom of a glass. And these are chilled, by the way, very nicely chilled. So that goes into there like that. Then I whisked up a load of double cream, which I'm going to add to my oatmeal mixture now. And mix that together. And then, curiously enough, if you look this up in the Oxford Companion to Food, a very learned book, it'll tell you that it started off as a drink. It wasn't always a pudding. They used to just drink it. You put that into the fridge and allow it to chill right down. And simple, and as easy as it is stunningly delicious and mind-blowingly alcoholic. A wonderful beginning and end to my feast. A delightful little starter, some seafood and cream tartlets, and a mouth-watering medley of fruit, whiskey and cream. A wonderful way to round off any dinner party. And only 3 more courses to go. Another excellent excuse for having whiskey on New Year's Eve is the indomitable, the incredible, and the fantastic haggis. This is a sheep's stomach stuffed with lamb and beef and herbs and onions, and it's already been cooked. So when you come to serve your haggis on New Year's Eve, all you have to do is put a little bit of stock around it, cover it in tin foil, and pop it in the oven. Now this one, which is a really heavy one, must be about 5 or 6 pounds, will take about 25 minutes to the pound to cook through. If you wanted to cheat, you could microwave it, wouldn't be quite as good, or alternatively, you could put it into a bowl of boiling water and let it simmer in the water. I prefer to cover it in tin foil and whack it in the oven. And it gives the opportunity to have that wonderful, wonderful winter vegetable, mashed swede, just boiled in salted water, strained, pureed with lots of butter, lots of pepper, and a good old dollop of cream. And of course, you get to eat it with the old whiskey. It's great. Because this is a very special evening, and I have got my friends here, in my own home, in my own kitchen, I want to do a really super 5-course dinner. So I thought we'd reintroduce the savoury. And so what I've done, I've cut some little discs of white bread out, drenched them in olive oil, spread some Roquefort cheese over them, then put some little bits of tomato, then some buffalo cheese, then some anchovy, and all I'm going to do is, at the time, later on this evening, pop those into the oven, and they'll be like little delicious mini pizzas, a wonderful savoury. And then we can get on with the port and the brandy. A delicious haggis, simply served with a rich gravy and creamy mashed swede. And this combination of cheeses, tomato and anchovies make the perfect savoury. Oh, it's been a busy old day, you know, but I'm ready. The guests are here. All I've got to do now is finish off my main course. I've roasted a few birds. Terribly simply, some partridge, 2 poussin, and 6 little quail, just roasted in butter, a little bit of salt and pepper, no problem, very easy, because the whole thing is meant to be easy, it's meant to be fun. But the good bit is, and the more complicated bit, is my special sauce. In the pot here, I've got very, very finely chopped carrots, onion and garlic, fried in olive oil. Then I'm going to add a load of chopped mushrooms. Now, you could, if you were extravagant, use wild mushrooms. These are just ordinary champignons de Paris, as they're known. Let them fry away in a bit of butter. Now, while they're sweating down, what I'm going to do here on my birds, turn up the old fire, because these little juices are the lovely roasting juices from the birds. But to get extra juices, we're going to set fire to them with a little bit of brandy, and that'll get even more flavour out of them. There we are. Gives us extra juice. In the meantime, some wine into our mushrooms. And we'll let that bubble away. Then, if you remember, I carefully explained, I'm sure you did watch the programme about preparing for Christmas, I made a wonderful giblet gravy to go with the turkey. But I saved half of it for New Year's Eve. I've had this in the deep freeze since I made it just before Christmas. And that saves you precious time. It's already there. So there we are. We let that bubble away. Absolute perfection. This is a stress-free dinner party. Simply roasting some quail, some partridge and baby chickens, making a rich red wine and mushroom sauce. Simply splendid. But there's a sting in the tail of this little happy cooking sequence. I live rather differently. Whoa. Cold winter's night. It's fun, isn't it? A little chicken forestière, I think we call that. English habits die hard, so even in southern Spain, where I live, we maintain the tradition, albeit by the pool. New Year's Eve is the time for resolutions. My resolution for the year 2001 is I'm going to stop drinking, I'm going to stop jet-setting around the world, and I'm going to take up golf and live a healthier, happier life. But if you believe that, you'll believe anything. Happy New Year. It's important when you're wrapping your Christmas presents, especially if they're food or drink related, to disguise them so they have a surprise. You see, they don't know whether it's red or white. Happy Christmas.